And what I realized is it's not what you do, it's who you do it with, it's how you do it. It was awful. It was the worst product, I think, ever to come out of the AI labs at AWS. An unfortunate talent that a lot of men have is the ability to be confident where they have no business being confident. Where they simply declare themselves the expert in a field that they maybe saw on Wikipedia twice.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Early Career Podcast. This is Priyanka Mahankali, your host and friend, and today I'm here to talk about a very, very important topic. It is about having fun in your work. And you might be thinking, oh wait, I'm on a career podcast, I'm on a corporate podcast, I am interested in knowing about how to grow my skills, so why are you talking to me about having fun, right? Well, as it turns out, having fun is a really important aspect of work, and it is actually one of the ways that we foster great relationships with people. It's how we make ourselves memorable, right? And so to truly show you the essence of what it means to have fun at work, I wanted to introduce you to someone who is one of the most skilled, fun person I've ever met in my entire life. So with that, please join me in welcoming Blaine Sundrud. Blaine?
Glad to be
Welcome
here,
to the
Priyanka.
podcast.
This is a lot of fun for me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Blaine. Thank you for being here. I every time I think of you, it's this warm, fuzzy, comforting, welcoming feeling that I get. And that's actually what makes me want to stay connected with you and make me want to talk to you more. So thank you, first of all, for making me feel that way, ever since we met back in, 2017 when I was like, 25, I was a kid, right? And I think in that formative age group, you want to be surrounded by people who are non-judgmental, who are comforting, who make you feel like yourself. And so thank you for that.
Well, and I think it's worth talking a little bit, just right from the gun, about how we actually met there in that program. I don't know
Yeah.
if the viewers of your podcast know your entire arc, but from your perspective, I mean, talk about those first couple meetings, and then
Yeah.
I'll kind of fill in the cracks from my side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always try to find every reason to talk about TechU, to be honest, because it is one of the reasons that because of which I'm here today, and the way I've built myself. I think if the foundation is good, as they say, right, then the building is going to be great. And so, yeah, as you know, since you and I met through TechU, and you were the key person who was leading the emotional intelligence, the soft skills, and all of those things. How do you communicate with customers, right? And I think I really appreciated the psychological focus on that, because it was not just, hey, here are 5 things you do, do these things and then you communicate with the customers, right? It wasn't just about you giving us instructions on what to do, but you gave us a way to think. You taught us how to think instead of what to think, and I think that is what stuck with me. So tell me a little bit more about what why are you so fun? First of all, why are you so fun, and what keeps you so fun every day, even in spite of life's, I'm sure, challenges, and then tell us a little bit more about your journey in TechU as well.
So that is an amazingly easy question to ask, and a very difficult question to answer. To know why I think I enjoy having so much fun, let me give you a little background of who I am, where I come from. I did my undergraduate work in mathematics education and theater education, which back in the 90s, yep, I'm as old as I look. Uh, Everyone's like,
By the way,
what are you?
you don't look old at all, and I feel like I'm talking to like an 18-year-old person every time I talk to you. So
I appreciate that, and the cookies are coming. I promise I will mail them to you. Um, But everyone's asking, what are you going to do with mathematics and theater? Those are completely different. And honestly, at the time, I said, I don't know, but I like both of them. I'm good at both of them. I'm going to keep on doing this and figure out what that means later. I started teaching public high school, did that for a couple years. Um, I was in rural Arizona in the United States, is where I was teaching. Which back in the day meant I wasn't making enough money to have a tin roof over my head. It was it was poverty wages in a town that was small to begin with. Uh, that's when corporate education found me. I ended up working for a software company that specialized in newspaper software. And you talk about finding joy in your life. And I think this was an important pivot in my life because I had my dream. I was teaching theater, I was teaching public speaking, I was making a difference. I'm still in contact with some of the high school students that I taught back in the 90s that now are nearing the ends of their careers as it was. But couldn't afford it, had to move on. Those of you listening, this is corporate. At some point you have to pay the bills. So there was a part of me that's like, I've sold my soul. I'm never going to have joy again. Let's just keep, sludging through. And what I realized is it's not what you do. It's who you do it with. It's how you do it. It's where you find the joy is not in the middle of the road, but it's what you see on the side of the road. It's taking the time to acknowledge that there's beauty in the way that you set up a classroom, in the way that you meet people out in the hallway. COVID was really difficult for me because I was very used to in-person contact. I hated virtual classrooms. The idea of working over a Zoom lens was something I'm like, yeah, you can do it, but you really want that in-person contact because that's where you can find the friends. That's where you can find the connections. Turns out you can do it just as well over camera, as everyone discovered. But this again goes through going through these life steps and realizing, and I'm going to again say it one more time, it's not where the road is taking you, it's what's on the side of the road where the fun is. So jump ahead. Like I said, I was in the newspaper industry. Yeah, I couldn't retire in that anyway. Those of you that are in the United States, how many of you read a print edition of the newspaper? I can't imagine anybody listening to this podcast does that.
I
Um,
still love it though. I still love it, and every time I go to India, I'm always like looking for the newspaper because it is fun. It is still fun.
I love it. I don't get a print edition subscription, and this was in my blood. Um, at that point, it was, but so had to leave that. AWS came calling to help set up training and certification, and at this point, I had spent enough time working in the education industry that I got into product management. I got into product development. I got into product marketing, all as part of just this small little company I was with. I had the opportunity to work with some neurologists out of France who specialized in marketing and how to get people to buy things that they probably don't need.
I'm the target
Um,
audience for that. I buy things that I don't need, so yeah, it works.
I mean, we all are. And that's the tragic thing. Great marketers can get you to buy things that you don't need and probably can't afford in some cases. Um, but you have to have it, and then a year later you find it in a closet somewhere and you go, why did I get this? What do I need this for? But you can't get rid of it because you invested half a month's salary in picking up whatever this dooliganger is.
Yeah,
um,
you've described almost most of my life in
yeah,
that sense.
it's all of us. We can all blame the wonderful skills that marketing has discovered. And what they discovered is that humans all around the world are how do I say this politely to everyone here on other side of the screen?
Okay.
We all think we're really intelligent and we've got this big frontal brain that, can invent amazing things like automobiles and cottage cheese and, whatever. That's not where we operate as humans. It's where we think we operate. But the truth is, it's the back of our brain. It's the brainstem. It's the amygdala. It's the hippocampus. It's the part of the brain that evolved during the lizard age and never really changed since then. It's survival. It's reproduction. It's self-interest. This is where marketers tap into. They tap into the lizard side of all of us. Well, I'm learning all these things. And by the way, you and I could have our own podcast for 2 hours just on that science alone.
No, but this is good, and like this literally is giving me like 9 years back flashback of me sitting in the classroom and you
We
teaching
taught
us
this,
about
yeah,
the amygdala and the frog brain. I remember this frog brain that you kept talking about. No, so this is great.
absolutely.
I think everyone should know about this because
Yeah,
that really drove all my decisions because I became more conscious of my amygdala making or driving the survival sort of brain, right? So
yeah,
every time you want to do something differently, you have to be aware that you have to override that survival brain in order to
yes.
do that, right? So yeah, tell us, yeah,
Yeah.
continue.
So what this means for us, for you out there, trying to advance in the corporate world, is that we think we're dealing with managers and hiring managers and executives and coworkers that are all data driven and thinking rationally. And on paper, sure, we are. But our actual decisions and emotional connection is very rudimentary. It's very simple. It's truly about what matters to me, not to my community, not to my shareholders. As much as we love to talk about, let's increase revenue value for our stakeholders. Okay, that's how you keep your job, but that's not really what you care about. You care about keeping your job, which is why we do the things we do subconsciously. Learning all these things, taking it to AWS, being able to help other educators, other technical presenters like yourself, Priyanka, understand where we can connect with people. This allowed me to directly connect with human beings and to find the joy in their life because I was able to help you and other people find out what you needed to be successful. So, where do I find my joy? There's a phrase I love to use in that I love to be the shoulders that someone else stands on so they can be taller. And as a teacher, as an educator, being able to work, especially with Tech U, and to be those shoulders and to see people being able to leap up and get to heights I couldn't get to because of the other skills you were able to bring. That was exciting to me. And it was realizing that my joy wasn't just about how much money I could make, what my title was, what my leveling was. It was who was I able to help out along the way. That's given me the spark that's kept me going through decades of a career.
That is amazing. And I've been inspired by you, Blaine, since the very beginning. And I think it's maybe you spoke to a part of me that wanted to hear from someone like you because I've always like looked for that. I've always been this empathetic person and I've always looked at people beyond the physical self of suits and looks and physical appearances like into their mind. And I feel like over the 9 years, right, at AWS, whatever I've achieved, I yes, skill set and technical business, all that, sure, that's everyone at Amazon. Everyone's very smart, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's everywhere in most parts of most companies, right?
Most
So
corporate America selects people that are
yeah,
top of the list. It's
yeah,
what they're in business for.
exactly, right? So I feel like the reason I was able to become whatever how much successful I am today is because of the because of the community, the sense of community that I was able to create and bring people with me as I was achieving this success. And so I was never trying to achieve it alone, and I think that is somewhat similar to what you'd mentioned about how you like to share what you know and you like to see other people grow as well. And I think that comes from a deep sense of empathy and wanting to add meaning to other people's life, and maybe that's where your the sort of joy and fun comes from, right? But I think fun is also, I don't think fun is a mistake or it's a by is a byproduct of something, right? I think it has to be very intentional. And I say this because sometimes I go to meetings and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be the smartest person. Like, I don't wish to be the smartest person in the room, but I definitely wish to be the most fun person in the room. So I always like intentionally try to make some jokes or say something stupid or silly. What do you think fun is intentional? What are your thoughts on that?
The word I like to tap into is whimsy. And perhaps the best example of those are going to be your anime conventions, uh, where you've got people that will spend half a year building their cosplay. They will earn no money from it, they will have no sponsorship, but just to be able to walk the halls of the Washington, D.C. Convention Center, wearing a headpiece that is 2 meters tall. Um, it brings that spark of I was not expecting that today, even at a convention like that. So when you talk about this idea of fun being intentional and whimsy being intentional, there's ways we can adjust how we speak. There's ways that we can change our verbiage, finding better ways to tell stories. Everyone knows if you're writing let's say it's a new proposal for a product, let's keep it generic. You want to make sure you've got projected use cases. How is developer one going to use this? And they're going to pass it off to manager two. And you write this, and that's really dry and boring. Um, don't do that, especially if you want to be noticed. It's not developer one. Give her a name. It's Sarah McGee. We're going to go ahead and name it. It's Samani. Give it something that creates a character. And then they are not building a program. They are building an application to discover orange tabby cats in my neighborhood. They want to catalog them and they want to give them names, starting with Bender the cat. And and you put these little micro details, and there's names and there's street names, and if you want to generate AI pictures to go along with it, do that. Create these images. It's still the same series of steps. You are still making the documentation, but the idea is to not be afraid to make people laugh. Back in the day, Amazon documentation used to be really good at this. Um, there was it was a gaming platform, or I think they were using, I forget the exact product now, but I think it was Lumberjack. That if you read deep into the terms and conditions, it said that, like, in the event of a zombie apocalypse, all warranties are null and void. Um, but you had to read through like 17 pages of normal legalese, and suddenly there's like a whole clause, a page and a half long, about the fact that during a zombie apocalypse we now render everything as irrelevant and you are on your own. Please board up your house. And then it continues on. If This is the kind of thing that gets you not only to enjoy yourself, but it puts a smile on other people's face. Um, so find where you simply have basic he, she pronouns and replace them with humans that you've created from whole cloth if need be, or put your friends in there. If you can't, if you're afraid to make up someone, put Priyanka Mahankali right there in your documentation. Even though she's never used your product, you can do that. She'll let you, even though she doesn't know it. And have I done that in the past? Yes, I have.
So you're saying give everything a personality so that it feels personal, right?
Right, and that adds the whimsy. That adds that unique bit of color that isn't needed, but makes the world go round.
Yeah. And it ties back to that amygdala brain that you mentioned, right? Which is like that beyond the
The,
businessy looking meetings, there's this human being who's like, oh, that's cute. But nobody's gonna say that, but they're gonna feel it. And you're trying to
and
tap into that.
and the amygdala trigger is called making things tangible.
Right.
Think about any TV commercial, any YouTube commercial that you watch. It's not just, oh, look, someone's taking an antidepressant. It's very clearly here is this mom and she's making lasagna and, oh, my clouds are a little bit dark, but I really want my child to enjoy the lasagna. And they're telling a whole story and, someone's going to call her out, hey, Sarah McGee, what's wrong? And now you've got a name and a problem and, oh, now this pill made me feel better or whatever. But it's that tangible beat that makes it stick in your mind as you're doing your work, as you're doing your communications internally. Unless you are told you absolutely have to strip all the color out of it, paint with as bright a palette as you can.
Yeah. And I truly believe that if like good companies and good cultures and good people, they will actually appreciate it. Like because they'll be like, oh, wait, this is not just impactful, this is also relatable. Because in the end, we're making product and technology that is for the everyday average person like all of us, right? So I know this actually reminds me of something very interesting, which is, the art of storytelling. And I remember this very vividly. Like now I hope you believe that I'm a fan of you because I literally I literally have remembered things and I would like use it in my customer conversations, in executive conversations with C level people. Sometimes like I go in and I'm just like laughing, like hey, yeah, nice shirt. I just start off very light, but and I think I've developed from what you've taught me, I've developed my own sort of version of storytelling. But can you give us um, all just a general sense of what are some things to hit or best practices for good, effective storytelling? Because, I've seen this, Blaine, in interviews as well. I'll
Yeah.
just give a little bit more context. Is in interviews, I tell people all the time that please make sure you tell a good story. It's not about just saying, I did this project and this project had these many points and I completed all these tasks and then this is what I did, right? That is so boring. And yes, that tells that you know a skill, but it doesn't really connect you with, and maybe, and you have to also compare yourself with like you and another candidate who has the same skills but is able to tell a better story, right? So, what advice and what recommendations would you give for people who are interviewing, people who are in their early career, people who are students, people who are even in their 30s, or even just really any age group, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is something people struggle fundamentally, is how to emotionally engage the other person through the art of storytelling.
Okay. There is a lot to unpack when you talk about storytelling. I have studied storytelling formally as part of my theater training. Um, you can spend your whole life studying and working on that form of communication and still find new things to add. So, what I want to do is, I want to give you a few tricks that will skip years and years of studying.
That's
Uh,
it. Yeah.
but having said that, take improv classes, take storytelling classes. Anything you can do to add on will only help your skills. That aside, what
Sure.
can you do now? Um, the one thing people forget about storytelling, it's the smallest detail that is memorable. If you see a war movie, I'm just going to just generic, think about some war movie you might have seen. It's not hordes of rolling tanks going across the grass that's memorable. It's the single soldier inside one of those tanks. Not even the gunner, it's the navigator. It's watching her eyes try to figure out what the next moment is that gets to your soul. The scope matters. The fact that there's 500 tanks rolling is important. That's the data. At some point, you do need to say that the product was used by 19,000 people. You know, that's the horde of tanks. But then you got to go small very quickly. You've got to talk about Sarah McGee, the navigator, you know, whoever was there, that was able to use this to find Bender the cat when she thought all hope was lost. Because Bender was chipped, we were able to find that specifically and recover her after only being gone for 2 days. Yes, 19,000 cats were recovered. Great. That's the big picture. Get as small as you can quickly. And then, as you're talking about interviews, you need to talk about what you did specifically to make this possible. But the only thing that matters with what you did is how it helped Sarah. You've got to tie everything back to that micro story. The next part of storytelling, though, is to tap it into the needs of the person you're talking to. And this is where we go back to, again, understanding that amygdala, understanding that hippocampus, that for anyone you're talking to, the most important person in the room is themselves. It's
Yeah.
you. The interviewer, I mean, they're happy to have you there because they'd love to have another person working on their team. That's why they're interviewing. But ultimately, it's so their job is easier and they get their team filled out. So finding ways to convert your story into how does this matter to you? This is about doing the research for the company you're interviewing with. This is about understanding the role behind there and what does the hiring manager actually need out of this sysops professional, out of this developer, out of this solutions architect, out of this product evangelist. You know, what is it that they are looking for and how does your story then help them? So you talk about Sarah McGee finding the cats. And so what does this mean to you, hiring manager? It means I'm able to create these products that people like Sarah are able to use, your customers. I was able to do it 19,000 times in the previous job. With you and your line of products, I expect to be able to do this and more because of the additional support systems that are available.
Right.
And that takes your story and converts it into an actionable element that the interviewer can take as to why you are better than anyone else in front of them that day. That's the differentiator. You've made it small and memorable, and then you connected it back to them.
Absolutely. You're so spot on. I love that. And then can you also like touch a little bit on, you know, the power of vulnerability, because I think that is also a key element of storytelling. Because I, for example, and I can share a quick example here, is when I was interviewing for a role recently, I was trying to I very quickly first figured out that that the other person is a very methodical, sort of structured person, in how they think, and I try to get into how the other person thinks because that's how they're going to perceive what I'm going to say, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to maybe I am the case study, right? That yeah, and then And then what I did was, and I know that I'm not a super methodical person, but that is also my strength. I'm a sort of like my brain is random enough to connect very random dots, and that actually helps the business. But so what I did is I kind of flipped around and said, "Oh, I know. Seems like you're a very methodical person, and so I think we might actually work very well together because our skills are complementary, right? Instead of it being like, oh, you're methodical and I'm not, so therefore." And so I think, and then tying that also to the vulnerability component, which is when they asked me about my journey, I didn't just talk about these are things I accomplished, but I talked about the bottom of the iceberg, which is like the failures, the challenges, and the
Oh
fact that
yeah.
there were times that I didn't make it. Like, and I was very honest about the fact that, you know what, my resume looks like this, but don't be fooled by it. I actually failed multiple times before I got to this point. So, and then that person actually started laughing after I said that. So, was that a good show of vulnerability?
So failure is a wonderful conversation to have. And hopefully, when you have your interviews, you have enough time where you can go into it. It's not just a quick 10-minute and, all I can hit is my highlights and go. But if you've got time to explore when things weren't what they should be, when things didn't end up well, and how that helped redirect you, what you're able to get from it, businesses do not have a 100% success rate. If they do, they are way too conservative and they won't survive anyway. Businesses need to be able to take risk. When I used to teach people how to do interviews at Amazon, one of my favorite conversations was on how to explore, tell me a time when things didn't go right for you. And what I didn't want to hear was someone say, well, there was a time I just prepared too much. I cared too much about my customer and I couldn't sleep at night. No, 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 no.
Or I'm too time conscious, or I'm too
Yes.
hardworking. I'm like,
Yeah,
no, no, stop
I'm
that.
too precise.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, no. Tell me when you released Deep Composer, which was supposed to be the spiritual successor to Deep Racer, which was amazing. Deep Composer was going to be the generative AI version of it. It was going to allow people to play a little melody on a keyboard, and it would build a whole symphonic arrangement underneath it. It was awful. It was the worst product, I think, ever to come out of the AI labs at AWS. But we tried it. We gave it a year of, experimenting in different ways to gamify it. And ultimately, it went nowhere. I love talking about that story as much as I talk about Deep Racer because it's a great example of trying to find out why did this work and why did this not work? What were the spiritual differences between these two products? How did it affect the users when we actually brought it to a user group and we give it to Gareth Digby? Why was Gareth loving the chance to race the car, but he looked at the keyboard and went dinka 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 dinka. He's like, okay, I'm done, and walked away from it. So getting into their minds, getting into what they're doing, if you can explore those kind of stories with an interviewer, not only talking about the success, but something similar that was not successful and why was it not successful, especially if it's now decisions that you will not make the same way again. What have you done so this doesn't happen again? So we don't have the same DNS errors all over again, Everyone's got a DNS failure story. Cool. What's yours? And how are you not having that mistake again?
Yeah, I think it's the learning component, which is what interviewers are looking for, right? Okay, you failed, sure, sure. Okay, but what did you learn and
Yeah.
how? And I think that's why they even ask you that. I actually ask this question a lot, and I'm sure you do too, which is, so looking back, what did you learn, right?
Yeah.
Because I think we're trying to see if people actually introspect. It's the introspection ability, right?
And
Yeah.
and your ability to adapt. Um, I read a great statistic, and I wish I knew the source of it. I can't even guess what the source was, but they were talking about great, successful CEOs compared to CEOs that flame out and are gone. And they looked at the ones who failed, and what they found out is they got their guess, their prediction, what direction this company go, they were wrong 50% of the time. Then they looked at the ones that were successful and found out they were wrong 50% of the time. The difference was the ones that were successful immediately realized they were wrong and course corrected, got things over, made a shift, took a bias for action, if you will, and said, yeah, this was a decision we made. It's not working. We're going to do this instead until they eventually land on a path that does work. So you telling the story of when things went wrong just makes it a Tuesday, but finding out how fast you're able to react to it, what was my change, where do I go from there, that's the exciting lesson from that.
Absolutely. And, I think you hit on a really interesting point about vulnerability and failure being a strength and a superpower, really, right?
Yeah.
There's also some candidates, however, that can go to the other extreme of it, where they might say things like, I can't work well under pressure, or I'm not time conscious. So my usual suggestion is to try to err on the side of saying something that is a failure, but something that is coachable by your own self, but also what the company perceives as a coachable skill, as opposed to something, let's say that they're not looking to change your personality itself, right? Let's say you're just a lazy person, so tell us about that. Yeah.
So let me tell you my actual personality flaw that I will never mention in an interview, but y'all listening now, you'll know my Achilles heel. I'm an introvert.
What?
That reaction is what I get all the time. And let me explain. I am actually a screaming, like on the Myers-Briggs scale, extrovert, introvert, I'm over here. I am like wildly introverted. But you see me on a conference like this or whatever, and I'm fine. It's because I have learned in spaces like this, I am invited to participate. You, in fact, called me up and said, we'd love to have this conversation. I'm like, yes, let's do this. I love being asked to do it. I could not have picked up the phone and called you and said, hey, it'd be fun. Let's do a podcast together. I would love to come on and let's do that. Because that's me entering your space. It's why I am a terrible salesperson. I'm really good in a sales call. I mean, I can convince people from Alaska to buy freezers in their outside world. I mean, I'm really good at stuff like that. But what I can't do is call someone cold who doesn't want to talk to me and say, let's talk about freezers.
I can actually relate to that. Go ahead, but I'll tell you.
Yeah. But that's why I'm an educator. A teacher is invited to come in. They're given a platform. They're fine. But the after hours cocktail party, when it's all done, you will find most teachers, most trainers like I am, they will huddle in one tiny corner over in the side where the couches are, just in a little, secluded area. It's too loud. It's too noisy. If you want to come and sit with me, I will talk with you all night. But your manager's like, get up and mingle. No, I am fine right here. I'm good. Mingling is happening on this couch, right where I'm sitting. This is it. And Priyanka knows this. She didn't know what was happening. This is me. She thought I was holding court. Like, come, sit, talk. No, I'm terrified in places like this.
Hey, you know what? Actually, I can't believe, I think you've solved literally on this podcast live, you've solved my lifelong confusion around why people think I'm an extrovert and I don't think that. And oh my God, okay, wow, this is okay. So
The definition literally is, do you get your energy when you are entering into spaces you previously have not been invited into, or does that cause you terror and fear? And
absolutely it does. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It-
A lot of us have learned social cues, and this goes to adaptation. I still haven't answered your question about how to deal with this in interviews. I'm getting to that. I have
yeah,
not
yeah,
forgotten your question. But
yeah. Go on.
how I've learned to adapt to this is I've actually become friends with people who are very extroverted, very salespeople. If anyone's in the Seattle area and knows a gentleman named Mark Fye, I used to ask myself, what would Mark Fye do in a situation? And he would walk up to someone at the bar and sit down, and he was your instant friend. And I've been able to do that like 5 times in my life because I have forced myself into that kind of interaction, but it's always been exhausting. And then I go back to the hotel room and I'm panting and breathing and I need to curl up with a book for an hour.
You
Um,
know, it's do you okay, so just to test this out, did you think I was an extrovert or an introvert? Be honest.
I thought you were middle. I didn't
Ah,
think you, I didn't see you as a classic extrovert because I saw you were very good at maintaining a circle of friends you trusted.
yeah.
But you are okay with strangers and people that were around you. But making sure that your close friends were monitored, to me, that puts you, in my
Yeah.
observation, in the middle of the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, that's where I kind of like keep going back and forth in the middle because I'm like, yes, I love talking to people, but I relate very much to you when you said, "Oh, I go and curl up in a in my own space," right? Like I am the first person to leave the party. Like like
Yes,
I will
yes, you
host
and
the
me
party.
both.
Yeah, I will host the party and then I'll be the first one to leave.
Yeah, it's like, all right, if y'all want to stay, I'm going
Yeah, yeah.
upstairs. Yep,
Ex
you know where the fridge is.
yeah.
I'm out. Yeah.
Exactly. And like I would be the first one to I mean, even when we would go for like team dinners and stuff, I would be usually, the youngest person there, but then I'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's 9:30. Oh, it's time to go back to the
Oh,
hotel." And then other people are like, "Oh, do you want to go to the karaoke bar?" I'm like,
yeah.
"What?" Like now at like after the whole day is done, because my social battery is actually very limited, just like yours, but maybe that's because of how we choose to use it when we actually do use it.
Where do you get your energy? Is the definition of introversion versus extroversion. Now, there are other ways people can define it, and I'm never going to argue with someone's uh, evaluation. I will say, don't be afraid to visit with a therapist. I have done therapy. It is absolutely worth it. Every human needs to go through it. Honestly,
Oh,
it
yeah.
helps. But that again, that's a different podcast. Now, going full circle back to your original question on admitting structural vulnerabilities. In an interview, I will never mention my introversion unless somebody specifically is asking a question, what is your personal, fatal flaw? If we're getting to that type of a conversation, then yeah, I'll explain that, but only if I know that the associated job is one where I can still be an introvert, because I can be an introvert and be a great educator. I could not be an introvert and be a great salesperson. If I'm
Yeah,
interviewing for a sales job, I'm not sharing that detail with them.
right.
I'm also wondering why I'm applying for a sales job, but
That's a different
welcome to the
question.
modern economy.
Yeah,
Um, why? And you hit on this when you posed the question, because a structural who am I flaw is not correctable. It's simply
mask.
it's coverable. Like
Yeah,
you can put a blanket over it, but the bones are still what the bones are. Um, a bad business decision, a bad product release, documentation that wasn't properly proofread, that led to customers putting, the wrong plug in the wrong socket. and frying the motherboard, and now you got a warranty problem. That's correctable. And that's a wonderful story you can talk about because it's not systemically incorrectable.
Yep, yep, exactly. I like how you called it. What did you call it? Structural?
Yeah, it's structural. It's your bones, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
proud of my bones. I have come to love the introvert inside of me. It means I don't try some things that other people want to do.
yeah,
You
yep,
know,
yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think right before this podcast, I was telling you about my flaw, which is being a perfectionist, right? Like
yeah,
I feel this urge, is like deep-seated need to be perfect all the
it's
time,
a
right?
fear of failure,
Yes, it is. It
and
is.
and that's combined. It's both of them.
Oh yeah, it is. It is a mixture. I can't point the finger of what is, which is what when. But basically, I just feel like I need to be this sort of person, right? And so, like for me, my biggest challenge is trying to not be that person all the time. But as you said, that is who you are. And sometimes the perfection in me actually solves or actually creates um, fail-proof situations, because I am someone who would have thought every aspect of that situation before it ever fails.
Our demons are in our lives for a purpose.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of that which makes you different from other people. I'm a doomsday scenario planner. If there's something coming up, if I'm about to do as a keynote address, I am thinking of every possible way this is going to go wrong. What happens if I spill water on the stage? What happens if I trip over my shoelaces? What if my button comes unbuttoned right in the middle because I'm wearing this silk shirt and it's a great shirt, but the buttons don't stay buttoned all the time. I mean, what am I going to have? I'm not sleeping at night because I'm going through all this. And then the day comes and the water doesn't tip over and I don't trip on my shoelaces. But you know what? The button does come unbuttoned. I knew it had to be a problem with that shirt. Shouldn't have worn that shirt. Wore it anyway. And you just rebutton it and go because in my mind, I've already gone through that scenario. Now, that's my demon. That's my idea of thinking through all the possible failure routes so that when a failure comes up, I've been there. I know where I am. It's a variation of your demon, but there are many of them out there. Don't be afraid of the thing that sends you spiraling, if you will. Look at it honestly. What are you here to help me understand? And take your demon out to tea. Find out what they want.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm a huge advocate as well of people accepting who they are, because I think when we don't accept who we are, we become more and more insecure, and then we tend to bleed on other people, right? And because that emotion, it's energy, right? It's going to go somewhere if it's not accepted by you.
Unfortunately, in the corporate world, more often than not, you're in the same room with the mediocre white men who are more than happy to become the expert, even if you happen to know more than them at that moment on a particular subject. So, the unfortunate advice I'm going to give is